Hello and welcome back. This is ProTaleDev back with another Dungeon Architect video, and this time is going to be probably a lot short video. Basically, I've spent the last week and a half playtesting the game, making sure it's working, and trying to see if there was any kind of issues or bugs. And I have fixed a lot of bugs, and it's running a lot more smoothly. It's a lot better now. But I'm going to talk about some of the newer stuff that I've done. There isn't too much, so like I said, shorter video, but just know that for the most part of all I've been doing is playtesting. Let's get straight into it. So there's a lot more in the environment now and it looks a lot better. Also, some of the shadows are working a lot better as well. There's a lot more rendering. So you'll also see that we've got these new trees, these new models. So it's going to be in the credits of the game what kind of trees and what models are used as usual, what packs are used. So you can see these new trees. So you got these palm trees for the beach, and then you've got these bigger ones for the areas that can't be destroyed, and then these smaller trees for the areas that can. And lots of different types of scenery that it just looks a lot more better, a lot more vibrant and a lot more diverse. Yeah, so as I just mentioned, we've also got these beaches sections, which just adds a little bit more to the island. So another thing is that we now have some other raid monsters that will appear. So we got the creep spider. We've also got a slime, and these are kind of just like hints at what kind of monsters you'll encounter from each of the three types, and they're just like extra that you'll see coming out of this little the dungeons. These are the smaller creatures. I didn't want to give too many monsters away and allow all monsters to just appear out of the dungeons and during the raid disaster. I just want it to be like the smaller monsters and that could escape. Yeah, there's no longer a light that will appear on the mouse during nighttime. There's no more like kind of big lights in general. I've chosen to do something a little bit different for the nighttime experience, which I think looks a lot better and works a lot better than this shining light coming from the center of the mouse. And I'll talk about that when it becomes nighttime. Another thing to mention is that I'm not sure if I mentioned it a couple of times, but I'll say it again. You only need to equip one weapon now during in order to enter a dungeon. However, the second dungeon will require two weapons. So when you want to do the second dungeon, this will require two weapons as opposed to one. Another thing to mention is that I've fixed a lot of the animation issues and the balancing issues in this game. There was a lot of, especially on the player within the dungeon, a lot of the animations are now working a lot better. So consuming a potion, weapons, things are a lot simpler in the animation aspect as well. I've kind of worked them out a lot better. Now, as you can see, the sun's setting, it's getting dark. What you'll see immediately is that what happens is essentially I've added in moonlight. So you have the sunlight right here, and then you're going to have like a big spotlight that's hanging over the map. That's going to be like a blue tinted aspect, and it's going to light up the map a lot more so that it's not completely dark. I've also added in these lights for the paths, so these sort of light poles sections, like lights that'll just shine on the path areas, just so it's easier to see the adventurers come in and the paths. I just think it adds a cool effect. You'll also see that the map is now got a blue tint to it. So this is nighttime, so you can actually still see. It's still dark, so you can tell it's nighttime, but the blue tint is from the moon, which I think just looks a lot better than a big light on my mouse. And you'll see in a second. In fact, let me do it now while it's still somewhat dark. What I can do is I can add in more of these paths. And you can see immediately that the lights just follow all the way around here, and it looks pretty good. So another thing to mention is that deleting ground is now a lot easier, because now the actual point of the mouse is no longer colliding with specific meshes like trees and things, so I can immediately destroy. So the other thing that you just saw there was also the animation of when I place an object. You'll see that the ground gets placed immediately, but the objects on top of the ground surface actually go up and do a slight little animation. It's just a little bit extra. The next thing to show is that down here you'll see that this whole bar has changed slightly. So you'll see that we have a little bit less of these now, of our basic resources. The reason for this is because now this arrow here, which switches the materials to crystals, has now got an extra functionality to it. So when I click this, what will happen is that it'll actually switch to maximum resources. So what we saw before was the maximum amount of resources you could have, and it was stretched out across this bar. We've minimized that, so what you can see is maximum resources when you click this, as well as our crystals like usual. And this is how much storage we have. This is how many maximum adventurers can come here. This is maximum housing that is available, and this is the maximum gold you can have. And of course you can switch it back to basics and see how much gold you have, how much water, food you have. So the next thing to talk about is the water buildings. So these were already available, I just hadn't, they were already completed, but I just hadn't made them available yet. But essentially we got these water production buildings, and then we've got the storage that I've now added. So first of all, we have a standard well, which collects natural groundwater. Then we have this next one, which even though it says a reservoir, it's not. It's actually a rain collector. And then we have this one, which is very much a combination of saltwater storage and then turn it into freshwater / rainwater as well. And so we got these buildings that are now in here. So if I were to place this down, you can see that it collects this rainwater. You can also see that we've got a well right here. So if I just quickly zoom in, you can see them right here. And then we've also got this bigger one, which I don't know if it's finished yet. There we go. So there you go. We've got this much bigger one, which collects a tremendous, much more water. Even though it says 8 right here, this labels aren't finished. However, they will not collect water if their storage is full. So that's important. So if I quickly switch over to water, we can only have 10 water. Now this has gone over the water, which is fine. However, it just won't collect more until that's been used up. Now we have a few storage buildings now that have been added along with that storage functionality. So we have the basic storage right here, and the storage can be placed anywhere on the island, so it's very much freely placeable. So players can hide these in the corners or off in a different direction or on a separate island. So right now we have the very basic storage, which is just some vessels to hold the water, so like a holding area, which is what I believe I've called it, the first one, a holding area, and that just holds 4 storage. So now if I switch to this, you'll see that we've got the extra storage right here. So the next one is actually a water tank. Obviously the names aren't done yet, so if I click this down, you'll see that this is a water tank that's holding 6 water. And then if we do the last one, you'll see that it's a huge building which is done, and this is essentially a reservoir or an artificial lake. So just like the water, we also have food storage as well, and so the first one is like barrels of food, so just a holding area just like the water had, but just slightly different, and this holds 4 as well. We also have right here, oh, how much gold have we got left? 100. Let me quickly restart just so we got more gold. Now I've been setting my gold back to 50, which is the basic, or 25, and splitting that between while testing. But for now, just to show this, I'm back to normal with lots of gold, just to show what I can do with this storage. So here we go. This is the normal storage. Zoom in. It's just some barrels. And then we have the second one, which I believe is, instead of a water tank, we have a silo. So you see that we have this big silo right here. And then the last one, just like the water, which is the artificial lake / reservoir, this one is a granary. A huge building, a granary which is holding 30 food. Another thing to mention is that the path now has a new texture, so I created this in paint.net just very briefly, very quickly, just to give the path a little bit of a nicer look. I tried lots of different things, lots of materials, and I just didn't like it, so I just decided to make my own material. Oh, and the paths also, even though they have like huge grass right here, we also have these benches, and as I mentioned, we have these like lights that you can see slightly, that all around you can see them on the paths themselves producing light. But yeah, you also have these benches just to add to the looks. And with that also shows the next thing, which is the shop is now finished for the comfort as well. So we have a shield which represents the comfort building, the shelter. We also have, the turret, 1 arrow, 2 arrows means the second turret, and level 3 turret is the 3 arrows, and then the same thing with the towers as it gets more complicated. But they'll also have a name as well to tell you what they do. So that is everything I've got so far, and hopefully I was able to cover that fairly quickly. Again, most of this was all about testing. I did a lot of testing. This extra stuff was really so a lot of it didn't take much time. So yeah, I also want to try and get the objectives finished for the tutorial island. That way it's sorted and there isn't much more to be done. In terms of design, I'm pretty happy with the island as it is now. I don't think I'll add any more to the island, and I don't think I'm going to add any more buildings either. I think buildings are done, I think the island is done, I think the visuals are done. So now it's really going to be just finishing the tutorial aspect of it before we move on to making our own bigger islands that players can sort of build on and use. So this has been ProTaleDev, and I'll see you next time.